the lives we lived are sometimes too stressed to actually live them comfortably. In some ways, I feel like we take life too seriously. Not in the sense that like we care about our life or we care about what we do, but the way we stress about our actions, the way we stress about, our everyday life, our everyday interactions, our everyday circumstance, sometimes is unbefitting of what actually occurs. In the saying, I think we take life too seriously. I mean, life is in some ways supposed to be fun, the way I see it. It's supposed to be an experience of you experiencing stuff, you learning about yourself, you cultivating yourself. But in that cultivation, I don't think it should be stress. I think it should be joy. I feel like a lot of us in personal development, a lot of us who are trying to self improve, get caught up in the mindset that, you know, they're trying to get rid of stuff. They're like stressed, like, oh, I have to get rid of this. Oh, I have to work on myself to get rid of this. Oh, I'm stressed. Oh, like negative feeling associated with your growth isn't gonna make you grow in good ways. At least I don't think so. I think, the ways in which I feel like I've grown as a person have been from positive instantiations of self awareness, not negative ones. I mean, it might have come from like a negative circumstance. Like I realized a part of myself that I needed to change, but stressing about our improvement and putting sometimes a timeline on it, I feel like is unwarranted. I feel like that sense of time doesn't exist. In the same way that there's no past self to overcome, there's no future to come to. It's all right now. And in that right now, it's not about feeling negative about yourself. It's not about the guilt. It's not about the stress of life. It's about how you feel about yourself, how you stress up over yourself. I feel like we stress a lot. Life is, the way I see it, it just is. The connotations we put on life are often prescribed by itself. And I'm not talking about everything. There's obviously stuff going on in the world that I'm not oblivious to that is inherently negative and immoral. But in terms of the things that, are our day to day lives, just internally, you know, all life is a reflection of who we are. And taking yourself too seriously, you're taking life too seriously. Be serious about yourself in terms of like, oh, I want to do this, oh, I want to do that, and believing it. But in terms of our self, in terms of how we interact with the world around us, I feel like we have to give ourselves more grace. The self shouldn't be such a stress thing. It should be more of a relaxed thing. He who squints his eyes in search has obscure vision. The more we look for stuff, the more we hold on to it, the more we lose everything around it. And the more we focus on ourselves in the sense of our negative aspects, we lose all the positive. And people get caught up in that cycle. And I feel like that's like the other end of a discipline. Like there's whenever I'm like watching stuff myself, like of course I absorb knowledge from everywhere else. Everyone has to stand on the shoulders of giants sometimes. So whenever I'm like watching videos or reading books, I feel like there's two distinct kinds of discipline. And I feel like I have one that's like super relaxed but also like super intentional. But I feel like there's also another side that's like embrace negativity, like you have to acknowledge the negative in order to just live comfortably, because if you acknowledge it now, it won't happen then. But he suffers more than necessary who suffers before it's necessary. I don't think life should be a stress thing like that. I don't think we should try to make life negative. And that's not to say don't be realistic. That's not to say don't acknowledge when there's a potential negative. Don't lead yourself astray in terms of your own perception, but don't dwell too much on the negative to the point where you don't acknowledge your own positivity. And I feel like a lot of us do that. Like, how often do you, pat yourself on the back for something positive you've done, and then think about how much you reprimand yourself for something negative? I feel like the dichotomy between that, the realization that we dwell too much on the negative is also like, I feel like one of the primary reasons why a lot of us are struggling mentally. and not being able to focus on the positive aspects of self, all we are is negative. And all we are able to see is the negativity that we feel inside for ourselves. So I guess the implication is to, stop taking life so seriously, in the sense that, at the end of the day, it might not matter. If it's not in your hands, it shouldn't be in your head. If all you can do is think about it, it's probably not worth thought. Person who thinks all the time has nothing to think of but thoughts. Alan Watts. All of these quotes to say, sometimes you don't have to. I feel like sometimes life is about just being. And I feel like that stress of trying to analyze life is sometimes too much a burden for a lot of us to handle. It should just be a being, a understanding, a constant growth, renewal, change, but an unstressed one. I don't think we should force ourselves to change, in the sense that, like, we shouldn't be like, I want to get rid of myself, in a sense. But instead, attack it in sort of a positive way. Like, oh, I want to cultivate myself. Oh, I want to develop myself. I want to make myself a better person. But like the approach to it, the mindset of how you view life, and how seriously you're taking, just your day to day, impacts everything else. To understand that life isn't and shouldn't be taken super serious. Not to say that life doesn't have value at all. I'm not saying that in the slightest. But to say that, sometimes we stress over things that definitely should not be stressed over. Or, we dwell too much on, sometimes past interactions, past relations, past anything, to the point where we're not able to live in the present enough to experience life. And when you fail to experience life, I feel like that's when I feel like that's when it gets to the point where you're living through your thoughts, you're living through your reactions, you're living through the negativity, or, and sometimes positivity. But I feel like every time where I felt like I'm happy in my life, or I'm positive, have been times where I've been super present. Super present. I feel like once you have that positive mindset in your mind, once you get that positivity, it kind of pushes you to be in the present more than it pushes you to be in your head. I feel like when you're in your head, it's often negative. You're trying to think of a connotation to put on certain things rather than just to experience it. Sometimes things don't need connotation. Life doesn't need a connotation sometimes. Sometimes it could just be. Sometimes you can too. And it's about finding comfort with that. Being able to float into this unknown and be okay with it. Be okay with not knowing the answers. Be okay with not knowing yourself. But realizing, there's still value in it. There's still value in who you are. There's still value. You matter. I want to make a video. It's titled "You Matter," because everyone matters. Your life is important. But that's not to say you have to stress about it. And I don't mean stress in the sense of like you don't do things that will make your life better. Like, oh, you don't have to go to work because Ian said, don't take life too seriously. No. I mean, don't dread work so much because don't take life too seriously. Still hold on to your responsibilities and things you need to do. But realize, you don't have to feel negative about everything. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. And focusing on the positive aspects of life, you realize, sometimes you need that dichotomy of the negative, the hard work, and the stress. I want to make a video on this too. Sometimes you have to stress in order to relax. But sometimes you have to have negative in order to have positive. Relaxation, I feel like, is always in reference to a period of work. You can't relax all the time because there's no reference. Then you're just not doing anything. That's called inaction. Relaxation and inaction are two different things for me. Like, I feel like I can't really relax until I get some stuff done, to the point where I'm like, maybe I should take a break, for my mental health. Not even if I'm feeling negative. Sometimes I'll feel good. Like, oh yeah, I put in so much work. I'm happy. I deserve to take a little break, invest in myself a little bit. Rather than to just, I don't feel like doing my work. I'm going to just sit down and not do much. I do that too sometimes. I'm a procrastinator. I'm a college student. I'm a human. But I realize and I understand that sometimes you need to have that. And I don't take life as seriously anymore, in the sense that I'm not stressed about a lot of stuff. The way I interact, I'm content. I'm comfortable with myself, and I realize that a lot of it doesn't matter. You know, as long as the people close to me, I know they rocking with me, and I'm glad. I'm more than happy, overjoyed, appreciative, and that's all that matters. That's all that is. Just focus on what makes your life good, but also realize how you interact and how you relate, how you cultivate self, and how you put that into the world. Being mindful of what you're projecting out and concentrating on everything else you need to do. All that to say, stop taking life so seriously. You don't have to stress over everything. It's it should be a fun thing. I feel like cultivation and development should be a fun thing. You take life too seriously to live it. Like, sometimes we're in our head too much to the point where we're not experiencing life for what it is. And that's what we should do. Get out of our head and get into the world we want to. And if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much. I think last time I checked, I was at, I don't even want to check my sub count. I'm not even gonna acknowledge it. But thank y'all, all of y'all, really. Like, it's definitely been a dramatic change for me, and it's kind of hard to change my perception of it, because I already felt like my videos were good in the sense that, like, I know I got stuff from them, but I'm really glad to see that everyone else is too. I made a Discord server. If you check my posts, please join up. I'm about to be more interactive on there pretty soon, hopefully. I'm about to get back to live streaming. Probably not this weekend or whenever I upload this video, but because I'm going out of town, but very soon. I'm about to drop a video on some books I recommend, because a lot of people have been asking. But to be honest, I don't be finishing the books all the way. I'll be reading parts. So we'll see how that goes. All that to say, appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Have a great day. Make sure you're being intentional with yourself. Take care of yourself. Don't take life too seriously. Don't live in your stress, but live in your reality. Yeah. Thanks again.